So I've made over 1,200 videos on YouTube, and I've been doing content consistently for about 6 years now. So I have a little bit of advice for new content creators. If you've never watched a video from me before, my name is Roberto Blake. I'm a creative entrepreneur, public speaker, and I'm somebody who talks about social media as a coach. One of the things that I want to do is help people with advice that I didn't have when I got started. And I think one of the most important things I can tell you, if you're a new content creator, is to set reasonable expectations and to respect where you are and the gap between you and the people you admire. Because if you don't do that, you're gonna find yourself discouraged, demotivated, and burning out real quick. Another thing I can tell you is that fancy gear isn't everything. I have a lot of fancy gear, and here's the thing. I got to 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. I got that silver play button right there with a camera that today is like $350. It was a Nikon D3200. It doesn't even have a flip out screen. And I had like a $30 microphone. Like, it was not anything special. I think I spent $150 on lights. I think that the whole YouTube kit that I had was maybe, if you throw everything together, it was like $1,000. And it wasn't nearly as good as what you can get for that money by today's standards. So ultimately, I don't think fancy cameras and gear and the best production values in the world are gonna do everything. And I know everyone keeps telling you quality over quantity, quality over quantity, quality. I'm gonna do a video about this. I believe that quality over quantity is a lie that artists tell themselves to feel a lot better and to take some of the stress and the pressure off. Because if I think like an athlete and I think about reps and I think about training and muscle memory, I think that a lot of you starting out just need to make more content. I genuinely believe that a lot of you starting out need to make more content, but not for the purposes of growing an audience, but growing as a content creator. I think that a lot of you need to make more content because the only way you're gonna master the camera gear that you have, learn settings, learn what the difference is between the gear that you have and the gear that you see professionals or higher tier people using. I think there's a lot you don't understand about the platform. I think that you have to learn and make mistakes in order to truly grow yourself. And I think that until you grow yourself, you can't ask for an audience for a dress rehearsal. I mean, you can, but the answer reasonably should be no. And I think that's something that is never really put into context for a lot of you. But Roberto, you have an audience. You don't know what it's like for us who are, smaller, channels or people just coming up in social media. We don't have a voice. We don't have an audience. We don't have any motivation to keep going if we're not getting. No, nonsense. I'm not gonna coddle you on this. This is the part of the video where people might stop watching or dislike me, but I'm being very straightforward and very blunt with you because you need somebody, much like an athlete needs a coach, to rein them back in and hold them accountable here. I remember exactly what it's like to be a small YouTuber, and I never got discouraged about it, and that may not be you, but do you want to know why I never got discouraged about it? I started in my late 20s, early 30s, which means that in the real world, I'd had much more hard things happen to me. And I was putting YouTube in perspective. And the reality is I knew, and I was honest with myself, and I knew that my early videos weren't good because I knew that I struggled to hit record and that I didn't have a strong on-camera presence and that I was very stiff and very monotone and robotic because I wasn't comfortable on camera because I hated public speaking in school. I hated public speaking in middle school, in high school. I hated it. I hated being put on the spot. I hated being put in front of other people. You know why? I hated being judged. I hated being judged, and I hated being criticized, and I hated people nitpicking over everything from my voice to my appearance to how quickly or not quickly I talk or how I pronounce a word or any number of things that would just make me so anxious and so nervous that I wanted to throw up, okay? I knew that, and I knew that the only way to get any better was to keep making content until it became much more natural and it became a lot easier to do and how to express myself and to be more of myself and to be more comfortable on camera so I can make jokes or so I could yell at you when I need to. And so that's something that didn't happen overnight. I've made over 1,000 videos. You don't get super comfortable like that instantaneously unless you're a naturally gifted performer, and I'm not. And a lot of you, the problem is you're looking at content creators you admire, and what you're not looking at is the journey and how much they suffered to be good enough for that. Or you're not looking at the fact that maybe some of them were born with a natural gift or ability that you don't have. And that's why you shouldn't compare yourself. Comparison is the theft of joy. It's a losing proposition. So I'm gonna make a dedicated video about this, but like, I genuinely believe that we don't tell ourselves the truth. And I think that we don't tell ourselves that, you know what, if this is our dress rehearsal or if this is our practice, why do we deserve an audience? It might feel good, it might feel validating, it might feel motivating, but that's entitlement. We don't deserve that because we haven't earned it yet. And I'm not putting you down just because you're a small channel. I'm telling you that until you practice your craft, when people show up, if you got 1 million eyeballs, you won't feel good when they start judging you. You won't. I'm telling you from experience because I was mortified as a small YouTuber when I realized that I'd gotten 1,000 subscribers before I felt I was ready and before I felt I was good. I was still judging my content, and I knew that there were a lot of things that I hadn't practiced enough yet and hadn't learned. I hadn't learned how to get better with the audio. I hadn't learned the mic situation yet. And whenever someone would say something about it in the comments, which I needed the feedback, I'd feel really embarrassed and really like ashamed of like, I didn't feel like I did a good job because it didn't meet a standard that I was setting for myself. But I kept going because the only way to meet that standard was to keep going, to keep practicing. And eventually I got some really good feedback on the microphone situation. It was like, hey, try this. And so I needed that, and it helped. And it made a real difference. And then there were other things with lighting where people gave me suggestions. They weren't experts. They were just viewers who actually were able to give me a helping hand and had some really good advice. And sometimes that's what you need. Other times you won't have that because maybe the audience isn't educated enough to help you. And that's where you're gonna need to watch videos like some of the content I put out. A lot of you should watch videos that I've made, not about growing an audience, but about growing your skills. I've done videos teaching you video techniques, teaching you what camera gear to buy, what audio gear you can use, software, video editing, even ways that you could maybe tweak your audio. I have an audio tutorial with 5 tips coming out soon that helped me, that I learned from people who are much better at audio than I am. So there's a lot that I think it takes to be a content creator, and it can feel overwhelming when you're new, which is why you need to do as much of it as you can with the time available to you. I don't think you have to be a daily content creator. So many of you are like, I want to make more content, or I can't make more content because I have school, or I have a family, or I have a job. Work with what you have, both in time, in energy, and in gear and equipment. Stop putting pressure on yourself. You can close the gap between you and somebody that you admire if you're willing to put in the time and effort and work that they put in to close the gap between them and what they were looking up to at the time. You have to respect your journey. There are too many of you getting discouraged because you're not getting far enough in 6 months or a year, and you would never do that if you were playing a sport. You would never look at a sport and say, oh, I'm not varsity yet, when you've been at it for like, what, 3 months, 6 months? Like, no, it doesn't work that way. So my advice to new content creators, you've heard it before, be patient. But I hope I made that much more realistic for you. And learn the platform. Really learn the platform. I'm talking about learn how to make thumbnails by learning either to be a good designer and learn Photoshop. I've done free tutorials. I'll link to my Photoshop tutorial for YouTube thumbnails up here. And then I'm also gonna link to a video for YouTube channel artwork. It's a Photoshop tutorial. I know that some of you don't have Photoshop. Photoshop is like $10 a month. It's a reasonable investment if you say you wanna take YouTube seriously. And if you really still can't afford it, maybe you're a kid or a student, then I've done a video on photop.com that I'll link in the description. And it's a free web browser-based thing. There's also Pixlr. There's a lot of options. So maybe I'll do a video on best free software for YouTubers. Let me know if you want a video on free software for YouTubers in the comment section, and I'll try and make that video for you guys. If a lot of you comment, then I'll make it sooner rather than later. But yeah, thumbnails are more important sometimes for at least getting the initial attention of people and the title of your video and your thumbnail than how fancy the actual, camera stuff is and the production values. One of my favorite YouTubers, he's a much larger content creator, Philip DeFranco. If you look at his videos, there's not a lot of zoom in and zoom out. There's not a lot of transitions unless there's something relevant to a story. And that's a simple jump cut, or it's a very simple transition to a piece of footage that puts the video into context. It is a talking head video aside from a few graphical elements, and it is a very straightforward and basic format. And he's been doing that format for a very long time, and I think it's one of the best formats on YouTube, which just goes to show that it doesn't need to be fancy. The people he hired is mostly just so he doesn't have to edit so he can spend more time with his family, and people to do the research, and people to build his media company. But to do quality content doesn't mean you have to have wildly expensive camera gear, overproduced, over-edited stuff. It means more than anything being able to build a relationship, talk to your audience, and deliver something for them, either in terms of entertainment, education, or inspiration, or showing them a piece of the world, or giving them something that they asked for. And that's all you really have to do when it comes to that emotional quality part. The technical quality, just have a decent enough production value. Your phone can do a lot of it. Basic editing, DaVinci Resolve is free, iMovie is free, Adobe Rush is affordable and has a free tier. There's so many options. Filmora, I'll do something about video editing software shortly for you guys, but you get my point. A lot of you are putting so much pressure on yourself as a new content creator that doesn't need to be there. My advice, keep everything simple until you can afford not to. There are a lot of you don't have the money to put into this. And you don't have a lot of time. I run a full-time business in terms of my social media coaching business, and I travel for public speaking all the time. I'm not spending 40 hours a week on YouTube. I'm not a full-time content creator hustling 40 hours a week. I don't spend 8 hours to make a piece of content. I don't, because I don't have that time, and I don't have that level of energy, and I am not emotionally invested in making that just because it might be popular. I'm gonna work with what I have and do the thing that fits me. And that's the other thing that I want you to take to heart is stop chasing other people and stop thinking you need a bunch of subscribers. Why do you need a bunch of subscribers? What is it about having a bunch of subscribers that matters so much to you or makes you want to, or you want to achieve your goals? You want to not work a 9-to-5 job? There are much more practical ways to do it than doing YouTube, and YouTube can still be an amazing hobby. I'm not saying you can't be a content creator, but I want to ask you, do you really believe that you've invested the skills into being a full-time content creator, or do you think that in 1 year or 2 years, you can develop the skills to make a full-time living, to make $30,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year as a content creator? Do you think you have the business savvy and you're going to develop the business savvy in 1 to 2 years? Do you think you're going to develop the technical ability? Do you think you're going to develop the communication skills, the ability to perform, all in 1 to 2 years just because you don't like the job that you have right now? That's a really unhealthy expectation to put on yourself. Seriously. That's gonna be devastating to put that on yourself and to take every extra minute of the day and have that expectation. I don't think that's reasonable. I don't think that's practical for a lot of people. I think that you've seen a few people blow up and do that, and you're not thinking about the fact that they have a different circumstance in life than you do. They have a different skill set than you do, or they have a different talent than you do. And there might be things suited to your talents that would let you pursue your passion of being a content creator and still have financial freedom or the ability to be independent and can free up some of your time. It might come down to the fact that you could get a better job, or you could transfer into a different career field, or that you could build a business, or that you could do a very lucrative side hustle that ends up covering you to give you more time to free up for content creation. Those are reasonable things that you could do that have a better chance of success than going 1,000% all in on this while not being honest with yourself about where you are and where you would need to be to pull it off. And that's not to put you down or disrespect you. I just want you to be honest with yourself and be more accountable and to take responsibility for your career. Now, in terms of advice and growing an audience, here is the thing that most people won't tell you is the actual secret to growing an audience in any social media content platform. And take this with a grain of salt because it might be discouraging, but it's the truth. There's an intersectionality that exists for what are you good at, what has attention, and what do you care about. And the reality is that a lot of people can only do two of those things. So you have a lot of content creators that don't grow because they're doing something that they're good at and that they care about that doesn't have attention or that is not easily understood. So that means it's not popular. And that's okay. It just means you might have a very small, loyal, passionate audience, or that you might be part of a micro niche. There might be it's going to be very hard for like a fishing channel or a golfing channel to get to 1 million subscribers. It's probably been done like at least once. It's probably been done like once, but there's not a lot of examples of that. There are a lot of examples of gaming channels that have grown to over 1 million, but here's the problem. Just because it's popular and it's been proven that people can do it, are you good enough at it and passionate about it? Because a lot of people will do something they're passionate about that's popular and they're not good at it. They're not good at it. I'm not a top tier gamer, and I'm not entertainer or performing. Vlogging might be popular. Guess what? I don't think I'd be good at vlogging, to be very real with you guys. I don't have a very interesting lifestyle in terms of I work. I run my business. I answer emails and everything like that. And on occasion I go and I travel and I do video photography, and that's cool. And I have a lot of amazing friends in the creator space that are bigger channels than me, and they do all kinds of weird and fun and crazy stuff, and that's awesome. But when I'm hanging with them, I don't always want to whip out a camera and record. I want to be a human being, and I want to hang out with my friends, and I want to stuff my face, which is most of what I end up doing when we hang out. So you have to really think about, do you have the skill to pull off the thing that you're passionate about? And even if you did, is there a market for it that's big enough to satisfy that desire you have for a large audience or something like that? And you have to also be honest with yourself that some of that might be ego, because how much attention do you actually need? Now, there's a practical thing of, well, I need this because sponsors or ad revenue or money, but then are you good at something that makes money that you're less passionate about but you don't hate? Because I would argue that a lot of what I do, and a lot of even what you guys see in the approach I use, I'm more passionate about probably Star Wars and photography and anime than a lot of the content that you see on my channel. This is not me living my number 1, number 2, or even number 3 passion. It's probably me living the number 4 or number 5. Here's the good news. The number 1, number 2, number 3 things that I'm passionate about, I get to selfishly keep for myself, never monetize them, never compromise and do those things and pander to what people want. And the other thing is, the niche of this channel may or may not have 1 million subscriber potential, but I'm okay with that because it's very lucrative, I'm good at it, and I'm passionate enough about it to be excited enough that I'm consistent with it. So you have to think about, what can you sustain? And I think that that's the key here that is overlooked whenever people give advice to content creators, even myself included. I don't think that I've talked about it in this way, and I want to do more of that. I want to have conversations that steer away from growth. And, because I do the videos on growth, to be very real, because it's what you want. You want to grow. You want a lot of subscribers. You want a lot of views. But what you don't necessarily want is all of the things that you have to do between that. You want the practical tips, you want the growth hacks, you want to know about the algorithm. What you don't want to know about is camera settings. What you don't want to know about is content strategy. What you don't want to know and you don't want to study is analytics. What you don't want to do is study user behavior. What you don't want to do is study improving your communication skills as a speaker and as a presenter. And you don't want to do any of those things because it's not interesting, it's not sexy, and it's not clickbait. You might want to do those things, but if you did, why don't you watch those videos more than you watch videos on how to grow on YouTube? And see, and that's like, and again, I'm slightly jabbing at you, but it's well intentioned, and it's to get you to kind of get the point here. The point is that the gap between where you want to be and where you currently are is usually a matter of skills. It's a matter of time and practice and effort that goes into developing those skills. And it's also really approaching this the way that you would approach your career, or that you would approach your sport or your craft if you were a performer or a musician. And that's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that no one ever pats you on the head for, never gives you a like, never gives you a comment. It's just the work. It's the head down work. And it's the thing that really, at the end of the day, separates people who make it from people who don't. And so the advice that I would give you is to be honest with yourself, have reasonable expectations, make things that if you want an audience, you have to understand the compromise of the intersectionality between what has attention and is popular, what you are actually good at, and what you care about. You might care about something and be good at something, and it has zero attention. Most people aren't interested in it, and you may not be willing to set aside popularity or ego or vanity or validation to stay in your lane. So the problem is you may not be very good at something that you're passionate about that has attention. Are you willing to put in the work and be patient enough to work at it to become good enough to deserve that larger audience? Because the thing is, there's somebody who already did that work. You need to come up and close the gap. A lot of people aren't willing to do that. And again, this might feel harsh, this might feel discouraging, but I also think it's the truth. And sometimes, doing the right thing by you guys is gonna mean telling harsh truths and things you don't wanna hear. And I think that's kind of where I'll end this video. So, question of the day. What skill do you think you need to improve in order to go to the next level? Let me know in the comment section. I'm also going to include some helpful resources in the description. There'll be other videos, and they might be tools that I've been using to help me along my way. And obviously I'm gonna link to all of my camera gear, and I'm gonna link to an affordable kit that I've kind of spec'd out for new content creators who may not be able to afford a lot of fancy stuff, because I certainly couldn't when I got started. Anyway, I hope this was helpful to you, and I hope that you took it the right way. Like this video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out the other awesome content here on the channel. As always, you guys, thanks so very much for watching, and don't forget, go out there and create something awesome today. Take care.